It may be common for families to disagree or to have financial difficulties. However, there are families who manage to keep their families together and go about their daily lives. I believe it is not necessary to think which is happier. My name is Lily. Since I was a child, I've been referred to as a strange child. I'm not sure what's odd about myself. I only think I am because people say I am odd. It's fine to be told that I'm strange, but the problem is that my parents avoid me because of it. My childhood was lonely. I'm so in tune to people's minds that I can read what they're thinking. I'm not sure how I'm able to do it. It's not that I couldn't see or feel everything, but I couldn't understand why I could do what I did. It felt so natural to me, just like how for ordinary people they move their hands or breathe. There was a time when I felt an evil emotion or a presence from a coworker who my father had brought home with him. I felt like we had to be careful with that person. I warned my mother, but she ignored me. Later, the coworker persuaded my father to sign a contract as a debt guarantor. My mother did not believe my story. But, as my father was leaving the table with the coworker, I said, "Something tells me that the phrase joint and several is hazardous. I'm not sure what solidarity entails, but be cautious." As a result, my father reluctantly declined to sign as a co-signer. As a result, when his colleague declared bankruptcy and was unable to repay his debts, the entire burden did not fall on my father. Another time, when I was out shopping with my mother, I felt a wave of unease approaching from behind me. When I turned around, I noticed a man wearing sunglasses and a hat, emitting that wave of unease. "Mom, let's just veer off that way and keep going," I said. With that, I took my mother's hand in mine and we walked down a side road. She was perplexed, wondering what was wrong, but as we moved to the side street, we heard a shout of, "I've been robbed!" from the main street. The man who had been emitting those dark vibrations had snatched a woman's bag right in front of us and fled. The woman who had been robbed by the man collapsed and was injured. My mother would have been that man's target if we had stayed on the sidewalk. My parents began to avoid me as a strange and peculiar child because this happened so frequently. I was so very lonely. What was normal to me was not normal to others. I was the strange and eerie child, so I kept my thoughts to myself. Even if I was feeling like something was wrong, I stopped expressing it, as if it were something only crazy people felt. I realized that if I didn't say anything, I was just like any other kid, and no one would think I was strange. Sophie, my younger sister, is 3 years younger than me. She is a typical child, unlike me. Unlike me, who is getting darker and darker as the years pass, my younger sister is becoming more adorable and cute. My younger sister was raised with the love from my parents, unlike me. My parents clearly preferred my younger sister to me. Sophie is a lovely young lady, but Lily is dark and shadowy. Lily is an odd child, despite the fact that she no longer says anything strange. I'm not going to say I've stopped saying strange things or feeling things only I can feel. It was something I made up to get by. I was sick of the pain this power was causing me, and I was doing everything I could to keep it under control. I grew up without my parents' love. It was either because my attempts to pretend I was normal gave the impression that I was unusual, or because once this unusual image was attached to me, it could not be erased. My younger sister, on the other hand, was raised with my parents' love. My spoiled sister sensed my parents' coldness and slight distance from me and began to look down on me. She used to say, "I don't like being around my sister because it transfers the darkness to me. I'm very attractive, but my sister has a negative impact on my image." She started saying things to put me down whenever she got the chance. My parents only tolerated her and made no attempt to correct her. She was approached by a scouter for an entertainment production company in town. She was asked to join their agency when I was in my second year of junior high, and she was in her 5th year of elementary school. She stated, "It's obvious because I'm attractive." They said I could be on television. My younger sister was already thinking about a career, which satisfied our parents. "You should take it slow and think about it. I have a bad feeling about this." I didn't want my sister to be in trouble, so I opened up about my feelings, which I had kept hidden for so long. My sister, who was unaware of my unusual ability, said, "Are you chastising me because you're not attractive and can't communicate with others like me? Don't be strange, and don't stand in my way." Her face turned red, and she reached for me. My parents, who knew about my ability, had either forgotten about it or were overjoyed to see their little daughter in the spotlight, and they stood by her side, accusing me. I then reaffirmed my intention to remain silent. I told myself that saying anything unnecessary would result in nothing good. An educational internship student was scheduled to visit my middle school one day. He was a male college student, a junior high graduate who aspired to be a physical education teacher. The trainee spoke of his educational dreams and gave a powerful speech to the teachers and students. He became very popular with the teachers and students, particularly the female students. As the intern responded briskly to the loud voices of the female students, I felt a black wave of dread wash over me. I had made it a rule to keep myself hidden and not reveal my unusual abilities. But when I saw that my classmates were in danger, I decided to break my own rule. I approached a teacher who appeared to understand what I was saying. "I know this is unexpected, but please believe me and help me." The teacher was perplexed by my abrupt statement, but he did as I requested and staked out a specific location after school. I kept the details from the teacher. I didn't tell him the details because there was no way he'd believe me even if I did. But the teacher listened to me without any explanation. He might have been more than a simpleton. The next day, the entire school was in a frenzy. The nuisance prevention ordinance had been violated by the student trainee. The teacher had staked out the area near the women's restroom, and the trainee appeared, entering the women's restroom. He set up a video camera within 15 minutes of starting the stakeout. The teacher was successful in suppressing the scene of the incident. As a result, the female students were not victims of voyeurism and were not humiliated. On the other hand, my younger sister was scouted by an entertainment agency and enthusiastically joined the agency, yet there were no lessons or even an audition. She was only required to pay costly affiliation and lesson fees. The office was then abruptly closed one day. Simply put, my sister was taken advantage of. She screamed and cried, turning her rage on me. She became enraged and yelled at me. "It's all because of you. You ruined my future. It's entirely your fault. It was an absurd statement, but my sister seemed to believe it wholeheartedly. She had to think that way to survive, but it was a disaster and an annoyance to me. My parents did not say such ridiculous things, but they did notice that she was pulling away from me and leaning towards our younger sister. As a strange child, I was to experience loneliness once again. I was pleased that I had been able to assist everyone at school, but I was concerned that my actions would push me over the edge. The following day, the teacher who had listened to my story summoned me to the staff room. I opened the door to the staff room, fearful of being labeled as strange once more. "You knew something like that was going to happen about a week ago, didn't you?" The teacher asked me in hushed tones, with no warning. I knew it was pointless to try to fool him, so I told him about my mysterious power. After all, I know there aren't many people like that out there. It was the first time I'd heard of anyone understanding what I was going through. The teacher explained that he knew someone with my level of power, which is why he understood me. He stated, "That person is actually my aunt, and I've known about her for a long time. I understand you have a lot on your mind. I'm sure you'll feel a lot better if you get advice from someone in your situation." The teacher brought the person to me after saying this. The person looked me in the eyes and said, "It's natural to be concerned, but you don't have to suffer." Her kind but deep eyes, which seemed to see everything, drew me in. Sarah was the person's name, and she told me that she had the same power as I did since childhood, and that she had spent her entire life troubled and hiding herself. The story of the older person who had gone through similar experiences to mine was releasing me from my fears and doubts. My interaction with Sarah began on that day. I addressed her as my mentor, but she laughed and replied, "Will you not call me that?" Sarah, or rather my mentor, changed my life. If I had lived a modest, shadowy existence, concealing who I was, but my consciousness was transformed. I was gradually able to live my daily life as a normal girl. However, since the incident at the entertainment agency, I have been unable to get close to my sister. In fact, we appear to be growing apart rather than together. It was normal for her not to talk to me, and the only time she did was to complain about something she didn't deserve or to make fun of me. I have no idea what triggers the switch. My psychic abilities also failed to predict my sister's emotional shifts. She used to say, "What's the big deal about you getting accepted to college? Aren't you just a mental flower garden?" My sister had failed the high school entrance exam at her first choice school, which she had been told she would definitely pass. She was able to enroll at a stopgap in a high school that she considered her second choice. As a result, my sister was furious that I had been accepted to her top choice university. I wasn't happy about it, and I wasn't bragging about it to my sister. She was simply making assumptions and disrespecting me. My parents only consoled and coddled my sister, who was going through a difficult time, and told me to go away and not to bother her. My sister didn't seem to like me either, despite the fact that I had grown up and become a better person since meeting my teacher. I guess she doesn't like me unless I'm a dark and gloomy inferior woman to her. My sister, on the other hand, is extremely intelligent. It's a wonder she didn't pass the high school entrance exam. She was very frustrated, and she channeled that frustration into her studies at the high school she enrolled in. As a result, she was the top student for 3 years and was accepted with a single shot into a difficult national university. She stated, "Heh heh, I got into the most difficult university. Your university is nowhere near mine." I responded to my sister's satisfied remark with a lighthearted, "Yeah, I guess so." I knew that getting too involved with her would be disastrous. My sister, on the other hand, thought my light response was a slight on her own brilliance and lashed out as hard as she could. My parents were scared of my sister, who would lose her temper until she calmed down, and whenever she got into this situation, all they could do was watch and worry. My parents blamed me for this and concluded by calling me a liar-troubled daughter. I wanted to argue with them about which of us was actually the troubled daughter, but I had to swallow those words because I had to go home and didn't want to complicate things. Aside from my sister, I was nearing the end of my college career and needed to make a decision about my life. I'm not as dark and withdrawn as I used to be, but I'm still not sociable, and I doubt my ability to form successful interpersonal relationships. My ability is to sense people's negative emotions. I can understand positive feelings, but people are more prone to negative feelings, and negative thoughts hurt me. I had been tossed around by swirling negative emotions in school, and I was on the verge of distrusting people. I was concerned if I could perform well in a corporate setting. I discussed this with my mentor. I was certain she had faced similar challenges, and I wanted to know how she overcame them. She stated, "I experienced the same difficulties that you are facing now. Maybe you should do something like me." She told me that she had spent a long time working as a fortune teller or counselor, assisting people with their problems. I have the ability to fully demonstrate my power and contribute to the world and others. As I can work freelance, I don't have to be part of an organization, and I don't have to deal with people's emotions or relationships, both of which I am afraid of. It's the ideal position for people like us. I decided to pursue the same job at the encouragement of my mentor. She showed me how to do the job and to find customers. Thanks to the internet, I can now work from home. When I told my parents and younger sister that, instead of getting a job after graduation, I would work from home, they said, "What exactly is it? What kind of job is it? What type of work is it? Then at the very least, you should do our housework. What about living costs?" That was my expected reaction from a parent, but I was disappointed that they had not been more supportive of me. While I assumed it was normal for them to expect housework and money, I was still sad. Because of this, I could see my sister disrespecting me even more in the future, which made me even more sad. So my life as a work-from-home employee began. There were no job offers at first, and it was a trial and error process, but with the assistance of my mentor, I gradually obtained a job. I couldn't do what my father asked me to, which was put money into the house, for about a year, so I devoted my energy to housework. My father was not pleased, but my mother was relieved that things were getting easier, and she kept him in check. When I put money into the house for the first time after about a year, my father made fun of me, saying, "You finally got some money, didn't you?" Even with the money, however, the number of household chores he shared with me did not increase, and my life remained the same. My sister graduated from university 2 years later and decided to work for a foreign affiliated company. Because it was a foreign company, the pay was good, and he told me, "Unlike my sister, I am not a member of the elite." My sister, who has found work outside of home, has made fun of the fact that I work from home. She stated, "I have no idea what you're doing working from home. Isn't that just for kicks? You're a parasite in your own home. My pay will increase, and I'm sure I'll be making 10 times more than my sister. Someone like you could never make that much money." My sister, who was promoted to chief after a year and a half with the company, also told me about it and made fun of me. My sister brags about her good salary, but she doesn't contribute anything to the household and doesn't help with any of the household chores. She delegated laundry, cleaning, meal preparation, and everything else to my mother and me. The work was between my mother and myself, but my mother delegated most of the work to me, so in effect, I was the one doing all the work. I said, "Sophie, you need to take better care of yourself. Instead of spending it all on yourself, you should put some money into the house." I informed her. Then she said, "You're a waste of space, sister. You should do all of our housework. I'm putting the money aside for my future." She never pays attention to me. For some unexplainable reason, my parents tactfully agree with her, claiming that it can't be helped because she's my sister. I wanted to stay in my current job because it was comfortable and familiar, but I was beginning to wonder what I should do with myself. My sister then made a shocking announcement. "I'm getting married!" Because there was no warning, my parents and I were taken aback and froze. He is a wealthy man who earns more than $10 million per year. "Oh, I'm sorry I became happy first, sister. But isn't marriage just a pipe dream for a person like you?" My sister then said she'd bring her boyfriend the following Sunday. Sunday arrived, and while we were in a state of panic due to the rapid succession of events, the man she brought with her was a young man dressed in a suit and tie who appeared to be capable. "My name is John, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I've come to propose to Sophie." He greeted her with dignity and politeness. "I told you he was wonderful, and he is, isn't he? I'll be happy with him." "John, what is your job?" My father, despite being overcome by her boyfriend's aura, asked a question anyway. "I am currently undergoing training at a company owned by a friend of my father's." When I was perplexed by the term, my sister explained, "His father is the company's president. He is training outside of the company to be his successor in the future," she explained cheerfully. My sister seemed overjoyed at the prospect of marrying the company's future president. After that, we talked about various topics before Sophie's boyfriend bravely left. Despite a few gaps in the subsequent conversation, my parents seemed pleased with the impressive man. John, who appeared to be young and fresh, cast an inexpressible shadow of blackness on me. I'm not sure how to explain it because I'm the one who can feel it. I couldn't stay silent any longer, fearing that marrying a man with this type of darkness would make my sister unhappy. "Listen, Sophie, you've only been dating him for less than 3 months, so get to know him a little better before you decide to marry him." My senses were going off, so I couldn't explain and tried to reassure my sister by saying something vague. "What exactly are you on about, sister? He is a man of great distinction and a potential president. He is a distinguished individual and the company's future president. You're just upset because you compare your situation to my happiness. You're a pitiful person, aren't you? My parents also yelled at me to get out of their way because such a wealthy man would soon be their son. Because you're a nobody, you should at least stop interfering with your sister's happiness. My parents' plan was obvious. Let their daughter marry a wealthy man and live in peace in their old age. My mind was racing with rage because I couldn't tell my sister about the black shadow that was attacking her. In the meantime, they got engaged and a meeting between the two families took place. My sister's fiancé's parents were clad in the same fresh breeze as John, but the same black clouds seemed to be hiding behind them again. However, the wedding day arrived before I could warn my sister and parents, who were too excited. You know, the president of our company is attending today's reception. Do you know how talented and promising I am? It's a great honor, but I know that you, my little stay-at-home sister, can't even imagine how great it is. Before leaving the house, my sister gleefully told me something I hadn't even asked her. As usual, she adds a few words of disrespect to me. They pledged their eternal love to each other at the hotel's wedding hall and then entered the reception hall. My sister looked happy with a big smile on her face, and I looked at her with concern as to how long that happiness would last. The president of the company, my sister said, would give the speech as guest of honor. It was a congratulatory speech, so naturally, it was a speech that lifted up my sister, and she was pleased with it. After all the congratulatory speeches were over, drinks and food were brought to each table. The food looked delicious, but I gradually began to feel uncomfortable. I was beginning to feel uncomfortable because nothing had been brought to my table. At first, I thought it was just a delay, but other tables had already received drinks and hors d'oeuvres one after another. It was obviously strange. I was the only one who had not received anything. The people at the same table also noticed the strangeness and began to get uncomfortable. At that time, my sister came up to me and said with a laugh in my ear, "Free food is not prepared for people like you. I mean, this food is too good for you. You should just go home and eat potato chips. Just leave our wedding gift and go home." My eyebrows shot up at the outrageous line said loudly in my ear. The groom was also grinning and nodding widely in the groom's seat. Even my parents pretended to be surprised at first, but when they said something like, well, Sophie is right," I was surprised at first, but that surprise was followed by a surge of anger. I never thought you could be this insane. Father and mother, you are too much. How could you accept such rudeness? My parents gave me a bitter look, but did not admonish my sister. I understand. I'm going home. But know this, you'll regret it. What's with that threat? I wonder if it's the howl of a loser. The hall was abuzz with excitement at this unbelievable turn of events, when a man stood up with a start. "I'm the groom's brother. My name is David. My brother and parents are scum, but the bride is even more so. I can't take it." The man who introduced himself as David continued, "Father, your company went bankrupt half a year ago, and you're still falsely claiming to be the president of it. The fact that you are still pretending to be the president of this company must mean that you are trying to take advantage of your daughter-in-law and her family. John, you can't be president anymore either, but you're still faking it and trying to sleaze off your wife. aren't you? Because you are unemployed now." The buzz in the hall heated up at the man's comment, but it was the younger sister who became even more heated. "What do you mean? You cheated me? What do you mean? You're unemployed?" She turned bright red and asked a series of questions. Her face gradually turned from red to blue, and her eyes began to tear up. My parents were also out of the loop, and both of them were screaming. The screams of my family echoed through the hall. Both the groom and the groom's parents were stunned and silent. In fact, before the show began, I had received David's confession and apology. I had asked him not to hesitate to speak his mind if something happened during the reception. Then, as my sister was blaming David with a face full of anger and resentment, another man stood up with a look of that said he could not take it anymore. It was the president of my sister's company. He said, "Enough of this. It's not looking good. You have no right to blame the groom. What makes you think you have the right to criticize the groom's brother for his mistreatment of his brother?" The boss's voice was filled with anger, and she looked frightened. "I didn't attend your ceremony for your sake," he said. "If you weren't Lily's sister, to whom I owe so much, I wouldn't be here." My sister's eyes went wide when the president suddenly mentioned my name. "Oh, Lily? Lily has saved numerous companies from crisis. She is like a goddess among us business owners." Under my mentor's guidance, I started out as a fortune teller and life consultant, and then became an advisor for corporate revitalization. Although I had no managerial knowledge, I have used my powers to show the company the way it should go. I was right on target, and one after another, the companies that turned to me revitalized their corporate strength, and their business experienced amazing recoveries. For this reason, I have received the titles of teacher and goddess. My sister's company was also consulted 6 months ago, and with my advice, it was revitalized as a stronger company. The president of the company felt in debt to me and attended today's wedding. She said, "Oh no, I didn't know anything about that. Aren't you a stay-at-home nobody?" Thanks to Lily, my business is going well. Thanks to you, I have a good job and now earn more than you do. I put enough money into the house, but my parents don't care about me. What do you think all that money was for? Oh, that money wasn't Sophie's. The parents seemed to have misunderstood. There was no way she could have brought money into the house. The wedding party broke up in a heap of confusion. Naturally, the wedding gift was fully refunded to everyone. How are we going to pay for this ceremony now that we don't have all the money from the gifts? Besides, I had relied on John's income and signed a contract for a condominium in my name. I can't pay the rent by myself if I'm unemployed. To the sobbing sister, John said, "You signed the contract on your own, didn't you?" "I don't know anything about it." "Divorce! Divorce! Divorce, you crook!" The wedding turned out to be a mess. This was also the result of his malice towards others for no reason at all. He might have claimed that he had a reason to be malicious, but there was no way that would have passed muster. Later, the young sister divorced John and demanded alimony. There was no way that John, who was unemployed, and his parents could afford to pay a large amount of alimony. And although they were barely able to pay for the wedding hall, it was nowhere near enough to cover the cost of the condo they had contracted for The house that was to become their love nest was canceled without ever being lived in. However, the loan balance was not erased, and the loan was a heavy burden on the younger sister. In addition, the outrageous behavior at the wedding spread quickly among the company officials who were present, and the sister lost credibility. The president of the company gave up on her and sent her to a lower position. She had no place at the company and lost her pride as an elite employee. She wanted to quit the company and run away, but in order to repay the loan, she had to continue working there. She continued working in a basement reference room, doing trivial work and may or may not be of any importance. John and his parents failed in their attempt to become parasites on my younger sister. They too are struggling to make ends meet by working day jobs. Naturally, the older brother David had separated himself from his parents and younger brother. My parents had easily given up on my sister, who had hit rock bottom, and they came to me. But I said, I don't want to be pushed around by you guys anymore. I'm going to cut you off. Goodbye. With that declaration, I left home, signed a lease on a new apartment, and began a new life. I took in my sister, who had fallen on hard times, and began to have trouble making ends meet. My sister's salary had been drastically reduced, and she could not afford to put any money into our parents' house. Naturally, I also stopped the money I had been putting in my parents' house. My parents, who could not lower their standards of living, quickly became exhausted and were complaining every day. My business is going well, and I am helping many companies and people in a positive way. And to tell the truth, I started dating David after the wedding incident, and he recently asked me to go out with him. If things continue as they are, marriage is on the horizon. I can't help but look forward to building up happiness with David, who has a clear heart with no dark shadows.
My name is Allison. I'm 62 years old this year. I usually help out with harvesting at a nearby farm and work as a store clerk at the shop. I've always enjoyed agricultural work, and since my husband Travis retired, I've taken it up not only for the income, but also to keep active. Travis, who is 4 years older than me, retired last year and now enjoys a leisurely life at home. He keeps himself busy with hobbies like gardening and DIY projects. We have 2 sons who are 28 and 23 years old. Even though Travis and I didn't complete our education, our eldest son Merrill moved out after landing a job right after college. Our younger son, Jeremy, is in grad school and lives with us. We're just an ordinary family. Now that our parenting duties are mostly over, we just want to enjoy our remaining years. However, life had a curveball in store for us. It all started with a sudden announcement from Merrill.
Dad, Mom, there's someone I want you to meet.
Turns out he had proposed to his girlfriend of 6 months, and she said yes. Sure, he's at an age where marriage wouldn't be too surprising, but shy Merrill? We were more shocked than happy. What's she like? How did you meet? What did you say when you proposed? I felt like a TV reporter.
She's stunning. Way out of my league, actually.
Our faces softened at the sight of our son's bashful expression. That Sunday, Merrill brought his fiancée to our home. Her name was Cindy. Tall and slender, with striking facial features, and draped in high-end designer clothes and accessories. While she was undoubtedly beautiful, something about her seemed restless and a little superficial. She examined our entranceway mirror and displayed antiques like an appraiser, questioned the brands of our furniture, and even felt the texture of our teacups. It made us uneasy. Our introductions went smoothly, and it was when I headed into the kitchen to cook dinner that things took a turn. As I was prepping the pan and chopping ingredients, I noticed Cindy standing behind me. "Well, what brings you here?" "Did you and Travis drop out of school?" Cindy suddenly asked. "Yeah, we did. I had to give up on my education in 8th grade due to illness. Travis always dreamed of being a carpenter, so he quit school as soon as he got into 9th grade to pursue that." Cindy shot me a look that could only be described as ice cold, like some high society type looking down on the common folk. Then Cindy shifted her line of questioning to my kitchenware. "You're using such a generic pan?" "Excuse me?" I thought she was going to offer to help, but her words were wildly off from what I'd expected. Keeping my cool, I said, yeah, it's handmade by an artisan. Simple but very functional." Cindy then picked up the pan and examined it closely. "I've never seen such a cheap-looking pan. In our home, we only use $800 pans and $400 knives. We never use such things." "Oh, is that so? Your family must be well off then." She might be good-looking, but her complete lack of common sense and constant need to one-up everyone really explains why guys don't stick around. Cindy then started gushing about how wealthy her family is. From prestigious private schools, from elementary to college. They have 3 cars, live in a high-rise in Boston, and even own a vacation home in Aspen. Her dad's a big shot in a trading company, and her mom's been a homemaker since they got married. Never known financial hardship. She rattled all this off as if I should be impressed. If she were the mom of one of my kids' friends, I would have shut her out immediately. But Cindy's one-upping didn't stop there. "Is this a gas stove? These days, it's all about all electric and induction. I dislike gas. It's so environmentally unfriendly. Ugh, and your dishwasher looks ancient. Are you even cleaning the dishes properly? Don't you think you should get better dishware for guests? The teacup you served earlier was cheap, wasn't it? Maybe you can't appreciate good things because you dropped down?" Hold on. Who does she think she is? Cindy complained about everything from our educational background to our household items, then finally declared, "It seems like we're not compatible. I'm going home." And she really did just leave. Meryl followed her out. I was worried this might lead to a breakup, so I called Meryl a few days later. He said,
"Mom, don't worry. Everything's fine."
I couldn't help but ask, "If you end up living together, are you going to use high-end pans and knives?"
"Nah, I doubt we'd cook much, but she's pretty particular about cosmetics. I wonder how much she spends."
I recall her makeup did seem on the heavier side. Still, can a marriage work when their views on money are so different? Our family lives a very average life. Will it even balance out? I'm concerned. You know you'll be sharing finances when you're married. Are you okay being so vague?
"It's fine, Mom. I'm just happy that I can marry Cindy."
It seems like Meryl is head over heels in love. No wonder. Meryl is a shy guy, very different from his outgoing brother Jeremy. He's never been the type to have a girlfriend. So when Cindy first came to our house, I couldn't help but wonder, why is such a beautiful girl with our son? Of course, Meryl is genuinely a kind and gentle soul. Maybe it's a parent's greed, but I think he's the perfect guy for marriage. She must have fallen for the person Meryl really is. That's what I think, but I can't shake a tinge of worry. I almost blurt out, maybe you should rethink the marriage. But it's not my place as a parent to interfere that much. If they're happy, then supporting their marriage is my role as a parent. And so, Meryl and Cindy got married as planned. Thanks to Cindy's family connections, they had a grand wedding at a great venue and honeymooned in Europe for 2 weeks. They paid for everything themselves. So it's not about money after all. That was a relief for me. Then something happened. Josie, the 83-year-old mother of my husband Travis, fell at home and broke her femur. Though she recovered, she couldn't walk well anymore and needed nursing care. Josie had been living alone since my father-in-law passed away 10 years ago. Quietly, Josie said to me, "I'm mentally sharp. I'd like to stay at home if possible." But she's elderly and her mobility is limited. Living alone is not an option. So I suggested, why don't you come and live with us? Fortunately, my relationship with Josie is good, and we have enough living space. Jeremy, who would also be living with us, was all for it.
If Grandma wants it, let's do it. I'll help with the nursing care too.
I remember Jeremy always loved Josie. My parents passed away when I was young, so the only grandparents my kids could call their own were Travis's parents. Josie especially took great care of my grandchildren, so my sons still adore her. Thank you. Josie will be thrilled. And so, we welcomed Josie into our home, and my life of providing nursing care began. But the one who had issues with it was, unsurprisingly, Cindy. What? In-home nursing care? Can't you afford a nursing home? The first thing out of Cindy's mouth upon hearing about the nursing care was that. It's not about that. There's a wait list for facilities. Plus, Josie is mentally sharp and wants to stay at home, so we decided to take her in. But Cindy's puzzled look didn't change. If you pay, there are plenty of facilities available, right? In-home nursing care is what poor people do, isn't it? Is she even aware of how incredibly rude she's being? As I forced a smile, Travis, who was beside me, quietly spoke up.
Come on, that's a bit harsh, don't you think? Allison decided to take on the role of caring for my mom. She should be commended, not criticized.
At Travis's words, Cindy looked puzzled, as if unsure why she was being cautioned. No, I have no intention of caring for you or your family. What's the point of looking after people who can't offer anything in return? Cindy's tone and expression were nothing short of hostile. Travis had meant to talk about your own parent, but it seems he'd been misunderstood. We were all taken aback by Cindy's forthright refusal to live together. We'll be fine. We have our plans. Hearing this, Cindy smirked faintly, looking almost snake-like. There were more instances where she seemed to look down on us. A relative whispered to me, "She's beautiful, but such a nasty character. You'll have a tough time with her as your daughter-in-law." All I could do was offer a wry smile. To be honest, I don't like Cindy, but she is Meryl's wife. We couldn't possibly ruin the happiness that our shy son Meryl had finally found. Travis felt the same. We'll have to take measures to ensure we don't end up caring for them. Cindy's loud declaration was met with cold stares from everyone in the family. We never intended to rely on Meryl and Jeremy for our nursing care. Sure, we might need help as we age, but hearing her bluntly say, "I have no intention of taking care of you," really ruins the mood. I want nothing to do with Cindy anymore. From then on, we kept our distance from Meryl and his wife. Then, Josie passed away. She went quietly in her sleep. The suddenness left me with no time to grieve, as I had to quickly organize the viewing and funeral. Of course, Meryl and his wife came to offer their condolences. Cindy showed up in a frilly black dress, heavy makeup like a supermodel, and a pink ribbon in her hair. Her outfit was obviously inappropriate, but I didn't have the energy to point it out. The moment came when I thanked her for attending, right after the viewing, and as we transitioned to the meal. It's good that you only had to provide nursing care for 2 months before she passed, huh? Cindy's voice resonated in the solemn atmosphere. Clearly, the room stirred, and I nearly dropped the food I was holding. Meryl seemed genuinely saddened by Josie's passing, but how would he react to his wife's words? I glared at Cindy with a piercing gaze. She continued, I've been thinking we'd be inconvenienced if you had to rely on us for nursing care from now on. Her phrasing was both irritating and tedious. What are you trying to say? I barely managed to keep my anger in check. Cindy took a deep breath and said, Let me be clear. I don't want to associate with broke dropouts like you and the rest. Let's cut ties. A bold declaration to sever relations. This isn't the time for that. Let's talk later, I suggested. No, let me declare it now in front of everyone. That way we have witnesses. Is this really the place to discuss this? Right after the viewing? I felt my first surge of hatred for this utterly insensitive woman. Just when I thought I'd lose my cool to confront her, Travis, who had been sitting quietly with his eyes closed, spoke up.
Fine. If that's how you feel, then you can take all of the $3 million in cash. And the land, too,
he said, addressing Jeremy beside him. $3 million? Land? Cindy murmured, looking perplexed at Travis. Jeremy exchanged a glance with Travis and said,
Sure thing, Dad. If we cut ties, Meryl and his wife are nothing to us.
Jeremy gleefully shouted,
$3 million, here I come,
and stuck out his tongue at Cindy. What's this $3 million? What money are you talking about, father-in-law?
You have no right to call me father-in-law. You just severed ties, so we're strangers now, aren't we?
No. Cindy stumbles over her words. Travis piles on.
We own 3 properties in Boston, just have a boat, and our vacation home is in the Hamptons. So yeah, as you said, we're dirt poor.
Jeremy adds,
Exactly. We can only travel abroad a few times a year, and our pans and knives are custom-made, so they don't even have a price tag.
Staying in character like those obnoxious new money families you'd see on a TV drama, Travis and Jeremy lay it on thick. But everything they're saying is actually true. What's your point? I didn't know that. Cindy sneers back at Travis and Jeremy. There's no way a family as poor looking as this has money. Are you making fun of me? Jeremy sighs dramatically.
You really don't know anything. Truly wealthy people live modestly most of the time.
Everyone in the family nods in agreement. After all, it's well known that we come from generations of landowners. Let's be clear, we've never had to worry about money. But this wealth isn't something we created. It's been handed down to us from our parents, grandparents, and ancestors before them. So, our philosophy is to live like any other family, not squander the wealth we inherited. However, money has no meaning if it's not used. We indulge occasionally and donate to charity when it's needed. That's all there is to it. Our two sons understand this well. They grew up without bragging how wealthy our family is, with a healthy sense of money. Jeremy continues,
It's the same for nursing care. We could have placed our elders in high-end facilities, but we all dislike solving issues with money. We wanted to support them as a family. You probably wouldn't understand this mindset, but that's how we feel.
Cindy, feeling the cold stares, raises her voice. Who do you think you are? Just as she lunges at Jeremy, yelling,
Enough already!
The one who stopped her was surprisingly Meryl, who had been silent until now.
You're possessed by money.
What are you even talking about?
You're all appearances. The 3 cars at your parents' place, they're Travis's company car and rental cars. Even that vacation home is just a company cottage you rent. Your mom told me you got your pots and pans from a thrift store. You never took school seriously, even though your parents sent you to private schools from elementary through college. Can you stop insulting my family now?
At Meryl's brutal truth, Cindy's face turned beet red, and she lost her composure. Hey, stop it! Not here! Nobody cast a sympathetic glance at Cindy, who now had tears in her eyes. Afterwards, Meryl and Cindy divorced. Cindy was blindsided by Meryl, whom she deeply loved, asking for a divorce, and she was quite disoriented. If we're divorcing, I want $3 million in settlement money, she demanded. Or give me Travis's land and I'll agree to the divorce. Things seemed like they would get complicated, but Cindy's parents stepped in and smoothed everything over. Her parents, who were sensible people, apologized profoundly, saying,
Our daughter probably has issues about money. We're sorry for her behavior.
Apparently, they had spoiled Cindy, their only daughter. Meryl, who had fallen for Cindy's looks, ended up marrying her, but not for the right reasons. After the divorce, Meryl moved back home.
I guess I really can't pick women. What should I do now?
He would complain about this while drinking with Travis and Jeremy.
Dad, what should I do? How did you end up marrying Mom? Do you want someone like Allison?
Well, Mom has always been on my side and she's kind.
Yeah, I like someone like Mom.
Jeremy, refilling his brother's glass, said,
Man, Meryl, if you keep talking like a mama's boy, you can forget about remarrying.
But his words didn't resonate with the intoxicated Meryl.
I've got it. Before getting into a relationship, I'll have Mom vet her. Hell, Dad and Jeremy can help appraise too. Meryl, that's absolutely not happening.
Both Travis and Jeremy looked at Meryl, visibly exasperated. Meryl, you're something else. I couldn't help but smile as I listened to this conversation. Parenting sure is challenging. I wonder if spring will ever come for my Meryl. All we can do as parents is watch in silence, and it's a bit frustrating.